Welcome to today's video, part 2 of the XXXL coin ranking video in the September edition. In my opinion, this is the most important coin ranking because historically, September is the worst month, meaning it is the last phase where we can still take advantage of the cheap prices. Right now, it is crucial to start with the right foundation and the right project selection for the upcoming bulls. That's exactly why I have prepared a lot for you today. We will continue right where we left off last time. If you're wondering, I'm currently recording part 2 directly, which is why you don't see it here on my YouTube channel yet, but of course you already know part 1. I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe so you won't miss the third and final part. There are actually a total of 3 parts here, so I really have some altcoins that still need to be analyzed for their potential. Now let's move on to the next altcoin with the next meme coin, namely Mumu the Bull, which currently has a market capitalization of 85 million. We had seen it back then in the middle of the summer slump. We had this strong interim pump, so it was from the absolute bottom that a 10x was achieved. From this point in 5x, we have now come back well here. In my opinion, I really like the meme because we also have a kind of boys club meme here and a sort of coup, which of course also implies the bull run and the bulls themselves. I also like it very much. There isn't anything like this in the meme coin sector yet, which gives us a small unique selling point. However, it is still a high risk project. We can observe the entire chart technically here. I personally like it a lot. We had a strong resistance above us that we sustainably broke through with some retests, and we are currently at that retest, which is why I see a good entry opportunity here. Of course, this is not financial advice. The entire coin ranking video is based solely on personal opinion. I should also mention that I am not paid by any of these projects, meaning everything is based on my personal, rational, and neutral opinion, so you are aware of that. But as I said, I see good entry opportunities here, which is why I will slowly but surely start building individual positions again. I really like the meme, and I also see a lot of potential here for the upcoming bull run. 87 million market capitalization is not particularly high. It could become a good 30 to 50x opportunity. So, especially when retail investors, the general public, become aware of crypto again, the meme coins will certainly benefit greatly from it. Of course, this always raises the question, especially with many meme coins. It's a complete top or flop situation. So theoretically, it could be that this thing might still make a 5x, and then Mumu the Bull dies off. It could also be that Mumu the Bull dies off tomorrow, but in that case, purely measured by potential, I see it at about a 30 to 50x, of course, absolutely high risk. Now let's move on to the next project, one of my favorite projects in quotation marks, which I have been extremely fond of lately, namely OpenGPU. In this case, we are also dealing with a Deepin project, which involves decentralized infrastructure networks, where decentralized GPU computing power is provided to train AIs. Similar to Akash network, similar to Render, Ito, Shortemisen, we definitely have absolute top competitors here, which I have already categorized. A 10 to 20x destroy goes in a similar direction, so GPU cloud computing is also a very hot narrative for the upcoming bull run. That's why OpenGPU has a very strong decentralized factor, which I really like, and of course the chart itself speaks for itself. Well, I have rarely seen such a good chart throughout the entire summer slump, with no significant sell-offs. Instead, one intermediate high after another was broken, and the bottom that was formed back at 0.50 has consistently moved up. Then at 65 highs, the next intermediate low is at 69s. Well, I like to say it again and again, we have what looks like the beginning of an exponential curve here. If we take a look at the chart, it also looks very neat, and I think that here, at the latest, if the $1 mark is sustainably broken, then in 2021, I could imagine a proper rocket. So maybe we will consolidate a bit here again, and then sustainably, when the breakout occurs, we will move strongly upwards. So this is definitely my personal forecast. We currently have 100% in circulating supply and 18 million market capitalization, which is really absolutely nothing. And this is simply due to the fact that we are still very much at the beginning. Just imagine, if OpenGPU makes a 10x move, we would be at a market capitalization of 180 million. A market capitalization of 180 million is roughly the size of Destroy Network. This means that if I actually rank Destroy Network at around 20 to 30x, OpenGPU probably has nearly 100x potential. So do you know what I mean? So 100x would be 1.8 billion, just to put it into perspective. 1.8 billion. Let's take a look at Render. Render currently has a market capitalization, which is basically the competitor now in the summer slump, of 2.7 billion. It is quite possible that Render could achieve a 10x during the bull run, which would bring us to 27 billion in 2021. The idea that OpenGPU could achieve a 100x is not unrealistic at all. Yes, because many often say, hey, how do you come up with such moonboy predictions? Or, hey Vincent, why do you make such extreme forecasts? Regardless, everything can be logically justified in this case. We can already see it based on competing projects what is theoretically possible. Of course, the question always arises whether such a project will really succeed, or if it is often just narrative, only half hot air, what is being said, which then quickly gets sold off again. We have seen this with many other deep projects that have partly died out, or strong price losses have been suffered, like OBSEC or other players. But in this case, I really see tremendous potential. I have actually, well, this is just a pure rumor, but I have heard from other insiders that possibly Alex Becker has invested here with one of his wallets. That's why this is really not necessarily a top or flop thing. I think a 10, 20, 30x is super realistic, so that could definitely work out well. But for me personally, when I look at all the altcoins in this case, and really think about what has true 100x potential, where do I estimate it most likely? Of course, with one or another meme coin, it is likely to be the case in that sense, but when I look at other projects here, OpenGPU is one of the projects where I could see it. As mentioned, a market capitalization of 1.8 billion must be reached for the 100x, and that's why I'm putting it right at the top. With the 100x, of course, be extremely careful here as well. Don't buy blindly now. And as I said, I am not paid by OpenGPU or anything like that. I don't know the founders or anything else, so this is really just my personal opinion. However, I see a lot of potential here and want to draw attention to it. Please do your own research and take a closer look at the project. It is definitely worth checking out. But now, please do not invest large sums of money, or relatively much, just because I rank it up here. It is still an extremely high-risk project, so one must be very cautious. That's why we are now moving on to the next project, which is Paul AI, also actually operating in the AI sector with a market capitalization of 140 million. It is one of the larger projects and has also been significantly punished in this case, but I really like it technically on the chart as well. We have returned to our origin, in this case here at the 12 to 16 cent range, where we are currently in the yellow buying zone. This is simply a buying zone that I had marked out back then, because often it is really that simple for each of you to develop a basic understanding. Often with launch projects, something like this happens, and then there comes a bit of a peak after another, and what happens is that sooner or later, a project breaks out extremely strongly from one day to the next. So, everything really happens all of a sudden, that's often the case, and then many projects return after the summer slump, and often the origin of this price explosion is later used as support. So, it is important to understand that this is a behavioral pattern in technical analysis that occurs repeatedly in many other projects. Therefore, in my opinion, the probability is relatively high that we have a final support beneath us. Of course, anything can happen. We could also break down further, somewhere around the 0.10 mark, but in my opinion, that is rather unrealistic, depending on what Bitcoin does. This is how I personally approach technical analysis, but we also need to wait a bit longer. We clearly have a downward trend in this case, which must be acknowledged. If we draw this out again, we can see that on a broader daily basis in charting, we are talking about the falling wedge pattern, and here a bullish breakout is more likely than a bearish breakout. Therefore, I see this breakout upwards happening sooner or later. In this case, we currently have a market capitalization of 130 million, and most of the circulating supply is already available. It is also a project that did not just come to the market overnight. We see it here at the end of 2023. We already launched here in August 2023, which means it is not a project that started in April. It didn't just start in 2024, but already at the end of 2020. The year 2023 speaks for itself. There is a better track record. In this case, I see it as a candidate for a 10 to 20x return, and theoretically, even more could happen. We can take a look. It concerns decentralized AI bots. I could imagine that if, for example, ChatGPT-5 comes out or a new Gemini from Google, such projects like Paul AI could benefit the most. They already have quite a bit to show, as they have their own chatbots, which I really like. There are clear advantages compared to traditional chatbots like ChatGPT, because in this case everything is decentralized, we have a crypto connection, and we are more resistant to censorship, unlike ChatGPT, where political opinions are often mixed in, especially with AIs like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. This can be a bit more decentralized and censorship-free here, which is a significant advantage. Therefore, the use case itself is strong. In 2021, we will have to wait and see how it establishes itself. It could be a 10 to 20x situation, but it could also be a 20 to 30x if it really becomes established. I think a realistic estimate for the next bull run is around 20 to 25x. Then the next project is something that I personally really like. I think the project itself is truly amazing, and in my opinion, everything fits perfectly. The foundation is there. The only downside, unfortunately, with Ondo is the current circulating supply. In this case, we have only about 20% of the circulating supply for Ondo. We can verify this with index tools, and we see that only 14% is in the circulating supply. Larger token unlocks will still take place in the coming months, which creates a bit of a dilemma. On one hand, it is an absolutely top RBA project. I consider Ondo to be one of the best RBA projects, and they already have a lot to show for it. However, purely from an investment perspective, one must be a bit more cautious due to the tokenomics. Therefore, I will assess Ondo as having relatively lower potential due to its already high market capitalization, which is close to 1 billion. However, at the end of the day, I believe that in 2021 it is a safe bet. So, for anyone looking for a safe bet in the RWA sector, Ondo is a good choice. I also think a 10 to 20x return is realistic, or maybe just a 5 to 10x, depending on how Ondo performs. However, due to the tokenomics, this needs to be observed further. In my opinion, it is a safe bet with very limited risk, so I don't see much risk in Onto right now. It can definitely be included in the portfolio as a good RWR player, but regarding its potential, we definitely need to wait and see. But it could also be a 10 to 20x in that case, so don't get me wrong, I am a big Ondo fan, but simply because of the tokenomics. Also, just a quick note, as the question often arises about where I personally buy all the altcoins, especially the smaller ones, I can confidently recommend Coinex. Coinex is almost always available, so in my opinion, it offers the best selection when it comes to altcoins. So, anyone who would like to support me and save on fees while also snagging an additional 60 USD can feel free to use the link in my video description, which would also support me and my channel. Now, let's move on to the next coin, specifically the next meme coin, PayPal. This is basically the Asian PP coin, which I find extremely exciting. Not necessarily because of the meme itself, which is fine and looks good, so I like it from a meme perspective as well. Everything fits from a fundamental point of view. However, my main factor for seeing so much potential in PayPal is the possibility that China may no longer want to ban crypto. We see here the news that has arrived, which was also the case in July, and it is planned for Q1 2024 that China will be back in the game. There is, of course, a tremendous amount of liquidity available, especially in the Asian region, and it is certainly a bet on the entire Asian sector when one chooses the largest meme coin here. Here, PayPay current market capitalization 46 million. The circulating supply is already available here. Chart-wise, it looks somewhat okay. It's really a complete top or flop situation. It could completely take off if China really gets involved, because in China, and generally in the Asian region, there is so much liquidity that should not be underestimated at all. It is quite possible that PayPal easily surpasses the 1 billion market capitalization. That would be a 20x from the current point. But one must be extremely careful here. If the Asia bet does not really pay off and China continues to want to ban crypto, then the outlook is of course very, very bleak. This is especially why one must be cautious. However, if the Asian market continues to expand and better regulations are in place, PayPal will also benefit from it. That's why I categorize it here as 20 to 30x. Now let's move on to the next project, which is a gaming project that some of you might already know. It's something bigger, namely B. Let's take a look. 600 million market capitalization has also been slightly penalized. We see it here, we were temporarily at 0.40, and we are currently back down to 0.14. I really like what we have here regarding the circulating supply. It is one of the largest infrastructure projects in the gaming sector. We basically have a kind of Web3 gaming hub where games can be launched with a crypto connection. Surely some of you know Steam, Usand, or Epic Games, whatever the case may be. Especially for those of you who used to play games, there is now an infrastructure for web games, and Beam is the absolute top player. It is the second largest gaming project after Immutable X, just so you are informed. Therefore, for those who want to bet blindly on the gaming sector without really engaging with it, without looking closely at which games are relevant and where I have individual asset risk, in that case, one can simply bet on Beams here. For me, it is also a good project that actually shows a potential for a 20x return. I know 600 million is a lot, but still, if the gaming sector should attract the gaming narrative, I see potential in Beam for really a 10 to 20x, if not more. Of course, it depends on how strong the gaming narrative will be. It could be that AI gains more traction, or also RWA, meaning real-world assets. But if gaming experiences a hype again, I see a good 20x here as well, so I would say a 15 to 25x is realistic when it comes to Beam. Then we will move on to the next project, which I was considering whether to include in today's video or not. But in my opinion, it is important to engage with emerging projects early on. This is a project that some of you might already know. It is already relatively large, so let's take a look. It is Base Terminal, which is essentially the in-house launchpad of the Base chain, where I personally see a lot of potential, as it is a complete infrastructure bet on the Base chain. Base chain is relatively popular, as we have seen for example through Brett or other user numbers, which have of course increased significantly. In general, Coinbase has developed extremely strongly, and now we have a complete infrastructure, a complete launchpad, where emerging projects can launch. And it is almost always the case that, of course, countless projects want to start during the bull run, and of course those who are at the top of the infrastructure, in this case Base Terminal on the Base chain, benefit extremely from this. We have also seen it with other projects, for example CDFI in the gaming sector, which performed incredibly well during the last bull run. I can imagine something similar happening here with Base Terminal. As mentioned, it is not launched yet, but it will be launching soon, in about a month or so. We can also see here from the website what it looks like. We currently have a sale in 4 days, which is why I wanted to include it in today's video. simply because there is still a chance to invest. But in this case, it's not just like a typical pre-sale meme coin or anything else where you can just throw money in. Rather, in this case, participants are drawn to see who is allowed to join. So, you can basically connect the wallet here. Everything runs through Ape Terminal, which is also a relatively large platform, so you don't have to worry about scams or anything like that. I also participated in this case to simply hope for the chance to make a small investment here. It works somewhat similarly to CDFI. You can imagine it where, in this case, it is a lottery to see if you have the chance to invest. The thing is, not everyone is allowed to invest. Only if you really have a ticket, 2001, are you allowed to invest a small part. For example, if you win a ticket, you can invest $50 or $500. So this is how it works. Other projects are also being launched through this Ape Terminal. Currently, Base Terminal and Base X are paying. I personally find the approach very exciting because it is backed by Coinbase. This is not just some random project with vague plans. Coinbase is truly behind it, as it is their own launchpad. Therefore, I see real potential here. It's also difficult for me to assess what potential is present here, so I think that if one can participate in the pre-sale, if one has a kind of lottery ticket, it could really become a 30x to 50x thing. If not, then it might be more of a 20 to 30x thing. But that's how I currently assess it. A 30 to 50x is possible because it is the in-house Coinbase launchpad, and I still see a lot of potential, especially in the base chain. That's why I wanted to mention it here in today's video. Then here is the next project, similar to the last MAGA coin. So we now have the next meme coin, Make America Great Again, which is also a kind of mega coin. In this case, it is the smaller brother of the one here, so you know at this point, here is a market capitalization of 25 million. As mentioned in the last video, everything here depends on Trump. The question of whether he will win the election or not is of course the question of all questions. If he wins the election, it really is a 30 to 50x thing. If he doesn't win, it's more of a flop where you can't really do much. But I also explained my strategy in the last video that I will sell a small portion just before the elections in 2021 and let the rest run, depending on whether Trump wins or not. Then we will move on to the next project, which is Soil. This is a project in the RWA sector with a current market capitalization of just 9 billion, thus it is still completely at the beginning. I also really like the project from a technical analysis perspective. We saw a rocket shooting up from 0.60 to 3. We can take a look. And now we have also returned to the origin in this case. I can illustrate it for you. Here was the origin just before the rocket, just before the strong pump says. Now in this case, we are still in a sell-off, and I think sooner or later, the bottom will slowly but surely be in place. Maybe something like that will happen, but if the overarching trend on a daily basis should slowly but surely change here, then I also see higher prices again. The only disadvantage of the project is that we can discuss the advantages. It is essentially a real-world asset project that is still in its early stages. The partnerships are extremely strong so far, which I really like. If the RWA sector picks up again, Soil will also benefit significantly from it. The team is public, which is very rare, especially for such small RWA projects, and it speaks for itself and the team. You can also find some information about the individuals, which also speaks for itself. So, I would say the infrastructure is in place, the basic parameters are right. Unfortunately, the tokenomics are not that great. I know there are some vesting and cliff phases, which means that not everything will be distributed to us during the bull run in the form of inflation. However, we still need to keep in mind that there is more to come. Therefore, it can certainly dampen the price. On one hand, a market cap of 4 million should be considered. One really has to imagine that 4 million is nothing at all. However, this must be put into perspective, undiluted, and we have a total market capitalization of 76 million, which means a large part is still ahead of us. That's why I am a bit cautious, even though I also see a lot of potential in it. In principle, this would really be a candidate for 50 to 100x. I would love to categorize it here, but unfortunately, the major disadvantage of the tokenomics in 2021 forces me to categorize it at 20 to 30x. I know this sounds pessimistic in quotation marks, but here we just have to wait and see how the tokenomics behave, because that can certainly dampen the price in this case. Now let's talk about the next project, which is also a meme coin project, but in this case it's very exciting, so really pay attention. It is, let's say, a boring meme coin project, Simon's Cat, with a current market capitalization of 200 million, so it is already a bit larger. However, we must note here that Simon's Cat is a project from the creators of Floki. We can take a look, and as we all know, Floki has extremely strong connections to Binance, which is why Simon's Cat runs on the BNB chain. We see it here. The whole thing operates on the BNB chain, which is actually rather unusual for meme coins. Often we see memes on the Ethereum chain, Solana chain, and maybe even Tron chain because of me. However, the Binance chain is not particularly popular for meme coins, which is why we are dealing with a kind of special case here. The reason for this is that it is from the creators of Floki. We can take a look at Floki, which has a market capitalization of 1.1 billion, meaning we have a team behind it that really has experience and theoretically also the connections for a Binance listing. Therefore, it is an interesting meme coin project that one should definitely keep an eye on. The chart also looks very, very healthy. It was freshly launched at the end of August and has not yet experienced a real bull run. as it simply has not gone through a meme coin season. That's why I'm extremely curious about what will happen in 2021 when another meme coin season breaks out. I see the project at a minimum of 1 billion. Of course, we also have to wait and see how strongly the meme coin season will break out, how much Simon's Cat will benefit from it, but for me, it's more of a thing of a 10 to 20x, not necessarily in the mega potential range of 30 to 50x, because this project is simply still a bit smaller. Here, one has to be careful. Just see how it all turns out. However, we have already seen it with other meme coins related to cats, for example, PopCat, which we will discuss shortly, where quite a bit has happened. Therefore, 1 billion is already quite realistic. A 10x would then be 2 billion, and a 20x would be 4 billion. There is also more potential at the end of the day. It is difficult to assess because it all depends on whether a Binance listing takes place or not, how it will be received overall, and generally how the narratives within the meme coin season play out. Are cats popular? Are dogs popular? At the end of the day, it's a world of its own and it's difficult to assess, but for my part, I'll put it at 20 to 30x. Then Solana is, for me, a candidate for about a 5 to 10x return. So we can take a look at Solana. I don't want to rank it too high either. I can well imagine that Solana could reach $1,000 in the upcoming bull run. Here we see 104 and 30, so it's not necessarily a 10x candidate for me. More like a 5 to 10x. A 5x in this case would be $700 to $800. Yes, I could also put it down here at the 5x. That might be a bit pessimistic, because I can already imagine that 5, 6, 7x is possible. So, as I said, my personal price prediction is $900 or $1,000. That would be a good 5 or 6 times. That's why I'm putting it in here. Then Rio Realio is also an RBA project, which I really like. A market capitalization of 5 million is absolutely nothing. It's simply about bringing real estate onto the blockchain, meaning the tokenization of real estate. For example, if someone wants to buy a property in Dubai that costs 10 million, then with Rio, there is the opportunity to acquire a small part of the property, and in that case, one participates in the entire real estate market. I find this very exciting for the use case. 2001, unfortunately, the supply is not particularly good here either. This is again a project where, in my opinion, the foundation fits perfectly, so all parameters are right except for the tokenomics, which are not quite as good here. Inflation is still on the horizon, which can certainly impact price performance, so one must be a bit cautious. Nevertheless, it is a project with absolute explosive potential that could really deliver a 30 to 50x return. As mentioned, we must also consider that with Realio, we have some vesting and cliff periods. Not everything will be released to us overnight, so it's not that there is a massive inflation present, but we definitely need to take into account that there is still a lot to come our way. But here the vesting phases run over the years, so it is still possible to see 30 to 50x in this case. Even with a 30x, we would still only be at a few hundred million, and that is definitely possible. Therefore, we must simply consider where we currently stand. 5 million is not much, 30 times would be about 150 million, and even 150 million is absolutely nothing in a bull run. That's why 30 to 50 times is still achievable, even though the tokenomics are not optimal. So I just realized we don't have that many coins left, so I will stop here for now. The next coins will be ranked in the third part, so make sure to tune in again. I was definitely pleased to record the coin ranking video for you today. I will now record the third part again, and then we will really have 3 solid parts, providing a nice overview for the entire month of September. I sincerely thank you for your attention, and please feel free to write in the comments what your opinion is regarding my rankings. Feel free to give critical feedback as well. If you would perhaps categorize 1 or 2 projects differently, I would definitely be interested in how you would have approached it. So please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I would be really happy about that. And then I would say, see you again in the next video.